Conor McGregor has always made headlines, but often for all the wrong reasons. Recently, a woman sued him, accusing him of assault, and while the trial was still ongoing, a shocking audio recording surfaced. It revealed some disturbing conversations about his treatment of women.
I want to show Freya and every other girl and boy that you can stand up for yourself if something happens to you, no matter who the person is.
But here's the twist. Conor's reaction to the audio might surprise you even more than the recording itself. Curious about what was said and how he responded? Then watch this video to the end. The judgment. So here's what happened. Conor McGregor faced some serious accusations in Dublin. A woman named Nikita Hand took him to court, claiming he acted inappropriately with her in a hotel back in 2018. It wasn't a criminal trial, it was a civil case. So if the court sided with her, it would have been about compensation, not jail time. Ms. Hand said she knew McGregor from their neighborhood. They were around the same age, had mutual friends, and she saw him as a big deal locally, a kind of hometown hero. She claimed that on December 8th, after a Christmas party, McGregor picked her and a friend up. She thought they were headed to another party, but they ended up at a hotel penthouse with another guy, James Lawrence. They were drinking and doing drugs, typical party stuff. At some point, Ms. Hand alleged that McGregor invited her into a bedroom, but things got intense. She didn't want to sleep with him because she was on her period. According to her, McGregor pinned her down, and she tried to fight him off but couldn't. She said she was left with bruises, scratches, and even a cut on her chest. When this case was taken to court, McGregor's lawyers argued she was trying to extort him, so it was one person's word against another. Then, a new video surfaced showing Conor, the UFC star, hanging out at a club with the same woman, Nikita, who accused him of misconduct. The interesting part was that the footage was reportedly taken after the alleged incident. Conor's lawyer even released a statement saying their story never changed, and this new video only supported their side further. At trial, the judge explained to the jury that Ms. Hand claimed she was hurt by both men that night. A doctor who examined her the next day said she was extremely distressed during the checkup and noticed several injuries, described as moderate to severe. Photos of those injuries were shown in court. The defense had a different story. They said McGregor admitted things got rough, but insisted she had agreed to it. His lawyers suggested that she didn't raise any complaints right away and claimed she was trying to get money from him. They even said she was being called a gold digger and a fraud. Ms. Hand's lawyer pushed back, saying she wasn't after money. She was just trying to stand up for herself and get some justice. But Nikita Hand has now won her civil case against Conor McGregor in Dublin's High Court. The jury awarded her about $248,600, around $258,500 in damages. This amount included $60,000 for general damages, around $135,000 for lost earnings, and about $50,000 for future income. They also covered her medical expenses. However, no additional damages for emotional distress were given. McGregor, who's 36 now, shook his head when the verdict was announced. Afterward, Ms. Hand spoke to reporters, saying she hoped her story would remind others not to stay silent, no matter how scared they felt. She encouraged people to speak up and keep fighting for what's right.
I would like to start off by saying I'm overwhelmed and touched by the support I have received from everybody.
She also thanked her family, especially her daughter Freya, for giving her strength over the past 6 years. Ms. Hand said she wanted to show her daughter and all kids that it was important to stand up for oneself, no matter who one was up against.
Justice will be served to all the victims of sexual assault. I hope my story is a reminder that no matter how afraid you might be, speak up, you have a voice, and keep on fighting for justice. I know this has impacted not only my life, my daughters, my family and friends tremendously.
Since the case was civil, the jury didn't need the same level of proof as in a criminal trial. They decided based on what was more likely to be true. Interestingly, while the jury ruled in her favor against McGregor, they didn't find enough evidence to support her claim against the second man involved. Ms. Hand said she was deeply moved by the support she received. Every card, letter, and email meant a lot to her. She wanted to thank everyone who reached out. Nikita Hand spoke out after winning her civil case against Conor McGregor, saying she always believed she would win because she had been honest from the start. In an interview, she shared that the outcome was important, not just for her, but also for her young daughter. She wanted her daughter to grow up knowing she should never feel like she has to stay silent. The day after the intense court case caught worldwide attention, Nikita admitted she felt completely exhausted. She mentioned she was taking things one day at a time. When asked if she had expected to win, she said she did. She believed her story was true and had confidence that the truth would come out. Meanwhile, Conor McGregor didn't hold back on social media. He called Nikita a liar and announced he planned to appeal the decision. He also celebrated the fact that the second man in the case, James Lawrence, had been cleared and said the fight wasn't over. James Lawrence also posted online saying Nikita would have to cover his legal costs and that he planned to sue her for damages. For now, Nikita is focusing on herself. She didn't want to get into the details about McGregor or the possibility of future criminal charges. She just needed time to process everything. Nikita also shared how disappointed she felt when the DPP decided not to proceed with a criminal trial, especially since she believed she was treated differently because one of the accused was famous. The DPP had explained in a 2020 letter that there wasn't enough evidence for a criminal trial. Nikita asked them to reconsider, but still felt let down by the process. When asked about this, Minister McEntee explained that Ireland's legal system is independent, which is important to prevent political influence. She mentioned that individuals can always ask for more details on why a decision was made. Since becoming minister, McEntee has focused on improving support for cases involving sensitive offences. Brid Smith, a member of People Before Profit, also commended Nikita's bravery and questioned the DPP's decision not to pursue the case. She pointed out that the jury's decision in the civil trial raised important questions. It's worth noting that criminal and civil cases have different standards of proof. In a criminal trial, the jury needs to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt, while in a civil case, they just need to decide if something is more likely true than not. In Nikita's case, the civil jury believed her story, and that's the outcome she wanted to share with others. Keep speaking up, even when the odds seem tough. If you think Nikita is the first person to accuse Conor of misconduct, think again. There are others who've come forward with similar stories. Other victims. UFC star Conor McGregor faced another serious accusation on June 11, 2023, after a woman claimed he assaulted her in a restroom at the arena right after Game 4 of the NBA Finals in Miami. According to news reporters, she filed a demand letter through her lawyer asking for a settlement from McGregor, the NBA, and the Miami Heat. The Heat released a statement saying they knew about the allegations and were investigating, but wouldn't comment further until it was done. The woman's lawyer, Ariel Mitchell, said in the letter that security from the NBA and the Heat forced her into the restroom where McGregor and his security guard were waiting. Mitchell described how McGregor reportedly kissed her aggressively, and security made sure no one entered the restroom. He allegedly forced her into pleasuring him orally, but she managed to escape by elbowing him repeatedly. She reported the incident to the police on June 11th. McGregor's team denied everything, saying the claims were false and that he wouldn't be intimidated. The UFC also knew about it and said they'd wait for the legal process to unfold before commenting further. Interestingly, McGregor was courtside during that game and even took part in a halftime promo where he punched the Heat mascot. The poor mascot ended up in the ER and had to go home with some pain meds. So, it wasn't exactly a quiet night for anyone involved. On 18th October, the case was dropped. Back in October 2019, Irish police got another complaint about McGregor. A woman claimed he had assaulted her in a car outside a Dublin pub. He denied it, but he was arrested, questioned, and then released. Then, in September 2020, things heated up again. McGregor was detained in Corsica, France. This time, he was accused of inappropriate behavior at a bar. He spent 2 days in custody, but authorities later said there wasn't enough evidence to go further. His team even mentioned that DNA tests backed his side of the story. Fast forward to January this year. Another incident came to light. A woman in her 40s said McGregor hurt her on his yacht during his birthday party in Ibiza. She claimed he got aggressive, hit her, and even threatened her life. She said she hurt her wrist trying to escape and ended up getting rescued by a Red Cross boat. Of course, McGregor denied it. His spokesperson firmly stood by his innocence. The woman didn't file a report with Spanish police right away, but she did later in Ireland, which led Spanish authorities to reopen the investigation. Nothing came of it though, and she eventually dropped her lawsuit without giving any reason. Now you might wonder, why did these cases seem to go nowhere? Could it be because Conor's a huge name with big achievements? Fame and power can make a difference, and many people question if that played a role here. Some believe his status helped him dodge charges. It definitely makes you think about how these situations might unfold differently if he weren't a global star, and how exactly is Conor a global star? Conor McGregor, born on July 14, 1988 in Dublin, Ireland, became the biggest name in mixed martial arts after winning UFC titles in 2 different weight classes between 2015 and 2016. He was the youngest of 3 kids, growing up in Crumlin, a working-class area in Dublin. His dad, Tony, worked as a taxi driver, while his mom, Margaret, was in the laundry business. McGregor went to Irish-speaking schools and loved playing football, soccer as a kid. When he was 12, he decided to take up boxing at the Crumlin Boxing Club. His natural talent stood out, and the head coach, Philip Sutcliffe, took notice and started guiding him. From there, McGregor didn't stop. He later trained in kickboxing and MMA at local gyms, including the Straight Blast Gym Ireland, Ireland, where John Kavanagh coached him. His parents were worried about him trying to make a career out of sports, so they convinced him to take up plumbing after finishing school. McGregor worked as a plumber's apprentice for a year, but his heart was never in it. He eventually quit, believing he had what it took to be a champion in MMA. And, well, he was right about that part.
I'm grateful for every single person that's been supporting me on this journey.
In 2008, Conor McGregor stepped into the professional MMA scene, competing in both the lightweight and featherweight divisions. Over the next 4 years, he only lost 2 matches. By 2011, he was already turning heads. He knocked out an opponent in just 4 seconds. During these early years, McGregor made ends meet with his prize money and unemployment benefits. His family and girlfriend, Dee Devlin, stood by him and gave him the emotional support he needed. He had started dating Dee shortly after leaving his plumbing job, and they've been together through it all. Fast forward to June 2012. McGregor clinched the featherweight title in the Cage Warriors Fighting Championship, CWFC. Just 6 months later, he added the lightweight title to his collection. His skills, confidence, and, let's be honest, his cockiness made him a rising star in the MMA world. What set him apart? His incredible sense of distance and range, razor-sharp striking accuracy, and that powerful left hand. By February 2013, he caught the attention of Dana White, the president of the UFC, which is the biggest name in MMA promotions. White wasted no time and signed McGregor that same month. In April, Conor made his UFC debut against Marcus Brimage and won by a technical knockout in just over a minute. Talk about making an entrance. His momentum didn't stop, even when he tore his ACL in 2013. 2 years later, in July 2015, McGregor faced Chad Mendes in Las Vegas for the interim featherweight title. The event had everything, including an entrance backed by Sinead O'Connor performing the Irish song The Foggy Dew. McGregor defeated Mendes in the second round by technical knockout and took home his first UFC championship belt. Then came December 2015, a match MMA fans will never forget. McGregor faced Jose Aldo for the featherweight title. With one stunning left hook, he knocked Aldo out in just 13 seconds, making UFC history again. In 2016, McGregor faced a setback. He fought Nate Diaz in the welterweight division and lost for the first time in his UFC career, tapping out in the second round. The build-up to that fight was intense. They exchanged trash talk and even got into a scuffle at a press conference. But McGregor wasn't done. 5 months later, he and Diaz had a rematch. This time, McGregor won by majority decision after a tough 5-round battle. Later that year, in November, he faced Eddie Alvarez for the UFC lightweight championship. In the second round, McGregor delivered a knockout win, becoming the first fighter in UFC history to hold titles in 2 weight divisions at the same time. In August 2017, Conor McGregor stepped out of his MMA comfort zone and into the boxing ring for a showdown with the legendary Floyd Mayweather Jr. The build-up was huge, lots of promotional buzz, loads of trash talk, but there was also a sense of playfulness beneath it all. Both fighters knew how to put on a show. When they finally faced off, Mayweather won by technical knockout in the 10th round. Still, commentators gave McGregor props for holding his own and making it a real fight. And let's be honest, both walked away winners. McGregor reportedly took home around $130 million. Talk about a payday. After that, things got a bit rocky. McGregor was stripped of his UFC titles due to inactivity, but he made a big comeback in 2018 to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov for the lightweight championship. Leading up to the fight, McGregor leaned into his notorious persona, hurling insults and controversial comments aimed at Khabib's culture and religion. The tension hit a boiling point. When McGregor tapped out in the 4th round, Khabib jumped out of the cage and into the crowd, sparking a wild brawl between both camps' supporters. In 2019, McGregor announced he was retiring from fighting with a record of 21 wins and 4 losses, but that didn't last long. In 2020, he was back in the octagon, taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone in a welterweight match. McGregor dominated, winning by knockout in just 40 seconds with a flurry of shoulder strikes and a head kick. He seemed more focused this time, dropping the over-the-top antics and trash talk that had defined his earlier career. Later that year, McGregor said he was retiring again, but surprise, he returned in 2021 for 2 fights against Dustin Poirier. Unfortunately, he lost both. In their second bout, McGregor broke his tibia and the fight had to be stopped. That injury sidelined him for a while. After years of recovery and teasing a comeback, he agreed to fight Michael Chandler in 2024. Fans were hyped, but the fight got called off just weeks before it was set to happen, reportedly due to another injury. Beyond fighting, McGregor has been busy with other ventures. In 2018, he launched Proper No. 12 Whiskey, which turned out to be a massive success. In 2021, Forbes named him the highest paid athlete of the previous year, estimating he earned around $180 million. Most of that came from selling his majority stake in the whiskey company. He's also been involved in other business projects, appearing in ads, opening the Black 4 Gin in Dublin, and creating the McGregor Fast Fitness fitness training program. On the personal side, McGregor and his longtime partner Dee Devlin have 4 kids together. They got engaged in 2020, and if all that wasn't enough, he also stepped into the world of acting. In 2024, he made his film debut in the remake of Roadhouse, playing a bad guy opposite Jake Gyllenhaal, who portrays an ex-UFC fighter turned bouncer. While accusations of sexual assault have made headlines, Conor has been involved in other types of misconduct and scandals too. From bar brawls to incidents with fans and opponents, McGregor's brash persona often spilled over into real-life confrontations. The scandals. In 2017, Conor McGregor landed a life-changing deal, a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather. This wasn't just any fight, it brought in millions for the Irish fighter. But around that same time, the controversies surrounding him seemed to grow even louder. One of the more common issues he faced was traffic violations. In November 2017, Conor McGregor admitted to speeding in Rathcoole, County Dublin, and ended up with a $400 fine. Fast forward a year to November 2018, and he found himself in a similar situation, this time for speeding in Kill County, Kildare. That one cost him a $1,000 fine and a 6-month driving ban. Things escalated in March 2022 when McGregor was arrested in Dublin for a string of driving offences. We're talking 2 counts of dangerous driving, driving without insurance, not having a valid licence, and failing to show his documents. The police even seized his car. He made bail, got his car back, and was set to appear in court in April. If found guilty, he faced some hefty consequences: a fine up to $5,000, 6 months in prison, or possibly both. By June 2022, McGregor appeared in Blanchardstown District Court for that March incident. He was still out on bail, but the judge mentioned additional charges could come into play. He hadn't entered a plea yet and was ordered to come back in September for further direction. And that wasn't the end of it. When September rolled around, he was hit with yet another charge, this time for careless driving. So now, in addition to the 2 dangerous driving charges, he had to deal with accusations of driving without a license or insurance and not showing those documents when asked. The trial was originally set for January 2023, but McGregor's defense argued that he was too unwell to attend, so the judge pushed the date back to July 2024. McGregor's nightlife antics also made headlines. He was often seen staying out late and drinking. During the court case related to an incident involving Nikita Hand, McGregor admitted that there had been in his car on the day in question. He also mentioned that when he goes out partying, he typically books a hotel suite to wind down, take a shower, and grab breakfast before heading home, and not for sleeping with girls. Overall, McGregor's behavior has often been criticized. It usually started with minor incidents, at least for him. In August 2019, TMZ Sports dropped a video that really got people talking. It showed Conor McGregor punching an older man at the Marble Arch pub in Dublin. This incident had actually happened back in April, but without the footage, it hadn't made much noise. So, what sparked it? Apparently, McGregor kept offering the guy a shot of his whiskey, but he wasn't interested. After being turned down several times, McGregor lost it and threw a punch. Irish police didn't waste any time. They opened an investigation, and by October, McGregor was in court facing assault charges. During the hearing, it came out that McGregor had quite the history, with 18 prior convictions stretching back to 2009. Most of those were for driving offences, but there was also a 2009 case where he was put under the Probation Act for an assault when he was just an apprentice plumber. This time around, he pleaded guilty and was slapped with a $1,000 fine. Fast forward to October 2021, and McGregor made headlines again. This time, he allegedly assaulted Francesco Facchinetti, an Italian musician and TV presenter, at a nightclub in Rome. Witnesses claimed McGregor broke Facchinetti's nose right in front of everyone, bodyguards included. Facchinetti didn't let it slide. He filed charges just a few days later. Then there was the NBA Finals in June 2023. McGregor was there to promote his pain relief spray and took part in a skit with the Miami Heat mascot, Bernie. It started off as planned. He landed a punch on the guy in the costume, who's actually a Heat dancer named Chris Brown, but things went sideways when McGregor threw a second punch while Brown was already down, this one hitting his jaw. Brown ended up in the emergency room, but fortunately, he was released later that day. The crowd wasn't impressed, and the boos made that pretty clear. McGregor brushed it off a few days later, saying it was all part of the act and that everything was fine between them. Let's just say McGregor's got a knack for staying in the spotlight, for better or worse. In March 2019, Conor McGregor found himself in hot water again. This time, it happened outside the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach. A fan tried to snap a photo with his phone, and McGregor didn't take it well. Security cameras caught him lunging at the guy, smacking the phone out of his hand, and then stomping on it. Not exactly a calm response. He was arrested on charges of strong-armed robbery and criminal mischief, and spent a few hours in custody before being released on a $5,000 bond. But it didn't end there. A few days later, news broke that the fan had filed a civil civil lawsuit against McGregor. By April, though, the fan dropped the suit, and by May, the criminal charges were also off the table. Apparently, McGregor reached an out-of-court settlement, and the fan's lawyer mentioned that his client had been made whole. Basically, they worked things out behind closed doors. Now, let's rewind to April 2018 for one of McGregor's most infamous incidents. It all started when Khabib Nurmagomedov and his crew confronted Artem Lobov, a close friend of McGregor, at a hotel in Brooklyn. Khabib even slapped Lobov, and that didn't sit well with Conor. The tension between Khabib and McGregor had been building for a while, with plenty of trash talk and bad blood. 2 days later, McGregor showed up at the Barclays Center during UFC 223's promotional events. He wasn't alone. He brought about 20 people with him. They managed to get inside, and Conor went straight for Khabib, who was on a bus with other fighters like Rose Namajunas, Alia Quinta, and Michael Chiesa. McGregor ran alongside the bus, grabbed a metal dolly, and hurled it at the window. Chaos erupted, glass shattered, and both Chiesa and Ray Borg ended up in the hospital. The injuries forced them off the fight card, and Artem Lobov was also pulled because of his involvement. Dana White, the UFC president, didn't hold back. He said there was a warrant out for McGregor's arrest and made it clear that this wasn't some publicity stunt. According to Dana, McGregor had texted him saying, "This had to be done." The NYPD was on it, and McGregor eventually turned himself in. He faced 3 assault charges and 1 for criminal mischief. Later, he was hit with additional charges for menacing and reckless endangerment. He got out on $50,000 bail and was free to travel while waiting for his court date. By June, McGregor had Bruce Maffeo, a high-profile lawyer, representing him. In the end, he pleaded no contest to disorderly conduct. His punishment? 5 days of community service and anger management classes. But the fallout didn't stop there. Michael Chiesa filed a lawsuit in September. He claimed the attack caused him pain and suffering and said it took away some of his enjoyment of life. If you enjoyed watching this video, then click on any of the cards on your screen to watch more interesting content.